Next, anybody ever go to a house closing, home closing, get that stack of documents, everything you got to look at? So one of the key areas for opportunity for blockchain is in the area of real estate. And with that, I'm going to bring up Bill Barbino and his team to give you a little bit of insights on what's going on with Cook County and some of the other areas. So Bill, why don't you come on up here?
Good morning, and thank you all for coming out today. My name is Bill Barbino, and I'm a member of Fintank. With me today are John Merkovic, who serves as the Deputy Recorder for the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, and Dave Conroy, an R&D engineer for the National Association of Realtors, Senator for Realtor Technology, or CRT Labs. John serves as the CCRD office spokesman and is responsible for internal and external communications, legislative advocacy, the property fraud unit. During his tenure at CCRD, John has implemented numerous technology advancements, including the work behind this year's unprecedented blockchain pilot program, which he completed earlier this year. Dave investigates emerging technologies and develops innovative processes and products for uses by NAR members and the public. He's an experienced engineer with a strong background in blockchain and distributed ledger. He also prototypes and does software designing, management, and networking. I'm going to start with Dave is going to give a quick presentation, and then we're going to ask a couple questions of the panel members, and we'll hopefully have a minute or two at the end to do some additional questions. So please bear with us.
Thanks, Bill. Clicker for the slides, too. Hi, everybody. First off, thank you for letting me come speak today. My name is David Conroy. I work for the National Association of Realtors. But I myself am not a realtor. I work in their new initiative called CRT Labs, which is an R&D lab that focuses on any emerging tech that could affect real estate. We're actually local to Chicago. Our lab is right on Michigan Ave. If you have any connection with tech and real estate and you would like to come see some more work we're doing, I welcome you to come up to me on one of the breaks, and we can schedule time for you to come visit. So to frame this discussion that we're about to have, I think it would be useful to talk a little bit about what CRT Labs is and how we provide value to our members. If you're not familiar with the National Association of Realtors, we have 1.2 million members nationwide. And our job as an emerging tech lab is to educate realtors about what's coming down the line. We also like to advocate, so when it gets implemented, the homeowners and the transfer of property is being considered. And we also get to innovate a little bit ourselves. So 3 quick examples of that. We were getting a lot of stories now with all these smart home technology being installed in homes that a realtor sold a home in Philadelphia, and a week later they got a call from their buyer. They're saying, hey, there's something wrong with the HVAC. No matter what I do, the temperature keeps going up to 85 degrees. It turns out the previous owner, the Nest thermostat was never reset, so they kept just cranking it up on the new buyer to make sure that for them to change it. So this is not a problem of tomorrow. It's a problem of today. It used to just be when you bought a home, you get the keys to the front door and the garage door opener. Now there's, your device could have 50 to 60 connected devices in it. So we created a free app, smarthomechecklist.com, which allows realtors and their clients to walk through a home, get a quick inventory, and a one-click reset instructions. This app is free, and also the code behind it is open source. All of the work we do at NAR and CRT Labs is available online on our GitHub. We also advocate on behalf of technology. A really good example of this is we partnered with the U.S. Department of Energy to pilot what it would look like to get energy usage information into listings at points where it made sense. So we built a mock MLS using Chicago listing data, and we connected it to live smart meters of people's homes, and we were able to include energy usage into listings. So imagine you went to realtor.com, you could see beds, baths, photos, and also energy efficiency. And this was updating live with real data from smart home devices. The name of that project is called Rosetta Home. We also besides education and advocacy, we also innovate. Here is another example of a project we're working on. It's an open source indoor air quality sensor. We've noticed that consumers these days, everyone is starting to track everything about their lives, like the number of steps they're taking, the number of calories they're eating, but no one is really effectively monitoring the health of the air they're breathing. So we built an open source, open hardware air quality sensor, which we're producing at MHub. The cost of this device is about $40 or $50. It can do air quality metrics, temperature, humidity, light, noise, pressure. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea about what CRT Labs is. It's almost like a tactical team for any tech that could affect real estate. So you might be wondering, I know, or some people who are, have gotten this question before, why does NAR care about blockchain? Now, I feel personally that this has the potential to be one of the most impactful technologies in real estate for the next few decades. And any trade article you'll read, it goes in this order. They say, Fintank is going to be revolutionized, and supply chain management, and then real estate. And I don't blame them. If you think about a real estate transaction, the average time to close is 45 to 60 days. And there's so many parties involved. You have your buyers, sellers, buyers agents, all of the attorneys, the lenders, the recorders' offices. There's so many different parties, and there's so many due diligence checks that are being duplicated and are redundant, that I think the distributed ledger process could really help revolutionize how real estate is transferred. Because blockchains at their core, what they do best is providing a verifiable and trustworthy record of events or transactions. So this obviously speaks to real estate. And as well as just providing that record of transactions, it also has the added benefits of the data can never be lost, can never be overwritten. If this is implemented properly, consumers will have a better idea about the properties they're buying. One project that I'm going to talk about in a minute is about creating a unique identifier for homes. So the way that your car has a VIN number, and because of that VIN number, you're able to know everything about that car through a Carfax report. I'm working on a project that is kind of creating a VIN number for homes, which I'll be talking about in a second. And obviously there is the benefits of smart contracts. So NAR's goal with our blockchain research is first step is we just want to improve property records. I would also like to reduce the cost of business for my realtor members and their clients. I would love to be able to get everyone to the closing table faster and with less risk and less room for fraud. So to kind of go back to how CRT Labs approaches projects, our progress to date. So for our education part, I've spoken on this topic about 20 times over the past year or so, and I know John has been on a similar circuit. My wife actually loves when I get to come to speak at these events because I'll have someone besides her to talk about blockchain with. For advocacy, a great example of CRT's work here is just last week or 2 weeks ago, we hosted a 2-day hack fest with the Linux Foundation where we brought pretty much the entire Linux Hyperledger team to Chicago for 2 days, where we were able to educate people and help drive the progress of that project forward. This is a project I work with Jennifer O'Rourke and the Linux Foundation and MHub to produce. It was awesome. I've never been in a room with 100 people and everyone to have a terminal screen up on their laptop. It was great to be a part of that. But we're also building projects. There are 2 projects that I'm working on right now. One of them is kind of internally. If you're not familiar with the Realtor Association, it's actually very spread out. We have over 1,200 offices. Every city has one, every state has one, but we all serve the same 1.2 million members. But the information is not shared very efficiently. So I have a prototype application where we are sharing information about our internal members more efficiently using ledgers. So of the 1.2 million members, whenever one of them goes to a class, responds to an email, makes a political contribution, that data is now shared on Hyperledger. And our second project is what I kind of touched on for a second before, is creating the universal identifier for homes. This is a project that's running on Ethereum, where I'm working with a group called RESO, the Real Estate Standards Organization. They have finally come up with the standard about how the VIN number for homes should be formatted. And now that we have that, I'm hoping that in the future I'll get to work with John on creating this kind of a title registry for unique identifiers, which will lead the way for all sorts of impactful applications that will be ledger-based. It's all the key here is having a way to identify homes, and then from that, it's off to the races. So to kind of wrap up here, NAR's goal is to just help organize and combine efforts, to collaborate. We really want to help be a part of launching impactful blockchain applications in real estate. And as Jennifer touched on, I think some of the biggest challenges will not be tech challenges, but will be governance and collaboration challenges. So we're here to start those discussions early and to help move this technology forward as best we can. Thank you.
But let's just really, as the rubber meets the road, that's where we're going to go right now. So John, why does blockchain make sense for keeping real estate and land transaction records?
At the heart of a real estate transaction is large groups of people agreeing on a single set of data, which is why it takes 40 to 65 days, I guess, because I think a lot of people would be surprised how many humans are behind a real estate transaction. It could be up to 50 when you count law offices, title companies, government offices, possibly going to 5 or 6 different government offices. So what blockchains and distributed ledgers do, and what Bitcoin does, is it allows large amounts of people to agree on a single set of data. And because people can't agree on a single set of data from which to operate in Illinois and most of the U.S., the consumers end up paying the cost of that. So we're stuck in a cycle of inaccurate information, or information that must be made accurate, and then we're able to do this a million times a day or whatever, but we just keep redoing this process over and over again. So blockchain is a way to break out of that cycle, set the standards of information, and then allow commerce and technology companies to start building on top of that. And real estate records are already kept in what is called a chain of title, so you could view each property, their own chronological history as a blockchain. It's an immutable, time-stamped ledger of transactions on a property. So once we start taking steps to standardize that, make it required, I think we will go to the next level. America is pretty unique in the world in the way we do real estate. We have one of the best systems, and kudos to everyone who helps hold that up. But I think it's time we can do it more efficiently, and frankly, government is at a time when it needs to do things more efficiently due to scarce resources.
Dave, so you spoke about the NRA doing research, developing, and
NAR.
implementations. NAR.
That's a separate meeting.
What did I say? Sorry.
I could talk about the applications for them too.
Okay. All right. So what are the for researching, developing, and implementing real estate, what do you see the benefits?
I think the most easiest to understand benefit, or one right away, is the reduce of fraud. It is rampant in real estate. There is a huge problem today with wire transfer fraud, and just cyber criminals love real estate. I know the slide was only up for a second, but and John just mentioned, there's so many different parties involved in a real estate transaction that and a lot of real estate brokerages are small to medium-sized businesses, and the mindset out there, or the previous mindset, was that I'm too small to mess with as a real estate brokerage. That's kind of a mom and pop stuff. And when people are buying and selling real estate, it's often their largest financial tool, right? And if we're able to use distributed ledger to help verify the process from start to finish, there will be less opportunities for cyber criminals to kind of just lurk on whether it's an inbox or an inbox at a lawyer or a real estate office. And they won't be able to intercept those funds if everyone is working from the same ledger. So I think the first application, besides improving property records, is reduction of fraud.
John, with the CCRD researching blockchain technologies and the report that you recently put out, how do you see the benefits from the CCRD align with the objectives that the NAR is doing and the work that Dave just discussed?
Yeah, probably the best takeaway is, standardization of data, and that's what this is really about. Blockchain is a fundamental protocol base layer, so, what we're interested in is creating that fundamental layer, replacing the paper-based system that is, rampant in all our lives, really, and, even looking at self-sovereign identity, just completely rebuilding the way that we transmit data, or not transmit it, right? We keep it in one place as an object, if you want to think in computer science.
It's crazy. So I bought my first condo in 2007, and I just refinanced it recently and paid off my original loan. And like 2 weeks later, in the mail, I got an actual paper copy of the documents that I signed in like 2007. I mean, I was just thinking about the amount of waste that is, and the amount of energy that is just wasted on like keeping these actual paper documents organized. So much money and time could be saved.
Thank you. John, so this was briefly mentioned about limited resources. This is where the rubber meets the road. What are the challenges and opportunities that organizations, especially financially strapped governments, face with the switchover to any new technology, either blockchain, distributed ledgers, or any other way of processing or holding these records?
Yeah, I think government's biggest challenge is that it waits for the private sector to innovate, and then it waits for them to tell us what we need to buy from you. So, I talk to recorders all across the country. They're still buying 20-year-old technology, and real estate is notorious for being behind the curve on technology, especially in government. I think the biggest challenge is twofold. It's getting government to forecast what the next generation is, and recognize this is 5 to 10 years away, but we have to start working on it now. And then I say the biggest challenge is the sheer complexity of these transactions. It's the fact that we have to convince 50 people to agree to do it better, and as every year goes by with federal standards aiming to make things better, it just makes things more urgent. So every transaction now becomes more stressful for everyone involved. So the biggest challenge is getting everyone to hit the timeout button, or at least agree that we can rebuild a better system. And it's going to take some time, and there's going to be almost everyone's going to win out of this. Not everyone will, but it's everyone agreeing, and financial institutions recognizing the benefits of things like self-releasing mortgages that can happen 30 years down the road, programmed into a smart contract. The financial benefits are great to almost everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Educating people on the incentive for this innovation, because it almost, sitting on the sidelines, you got to convince people to get involved, and by educating about the incentives, I think that could help a lot.
John, one thing in your paper discussed the consolidation that's going on with the CCRD. How do politics get involved in governments and technology for the next 20 years, where people may be only elected for 4 years, 8 years at a time? Is there a special need or issue that you face?
It's interesting. Technology and government intersect politically insofar as more efficiencies lead to, could potentially be fewer jobs. So you have some elected officials that are protectionist against workflows, and I think we see that across the entire work of real estate. People protect inefficient workflows for their own reasons, and the people are sort of shunted to the side. So the recorder's office is going to be merged with the county clerk's office in about 2 years. That's going to be a great opportunity. You're going to have, Jennifer mentioned the 5 pilots, right? We're going to have under one roof vital records, land records, voting, right? So now you have the impetus for really building a blockchain or DLT infrastructure for that. And my boss, Karen Yarbrough, is running for that office, and will probably be one of the first candidates in the country to strongly support self-sovereign identity. It's time to, frankly, for all of us to join together and demand private sector. We're done filling out applications about who we are. We're done going to doctors' offices and reproving who we are. It's inefficient. It leads to people getting sick and dying. So with Equifax, this is a perfect opportunity for all of us to be talking about that with our friends and family. I think we're all sick of every time we go to a store having to re-enter our information and having that information being hacked. So, identity is key to this, and returning identity to where it belongs, the people.
Sure. If you're looking for more information about those pilot projects that Illinois is doing, the company that is implementing the vital records at birth is called Evernyme, and it's built off an open source project that's part of Hyperledger called Sovereign, S-O-V-R-I-N.
Yeah, that's great stuff that the governments are taking the initiative on doing this, but then we have the private sector. So Dave, how do you feel that the organizations and the members that work with the NAR are preparing themselves to move to blockchain? We've spoken about the government making the move. We've spoken about what the possibilities are out there, but how are your 1.2 million members, the institutions, everyone ready to also move?
They've been surprisingly optimistic about the process. I think realtors themselves are very forward-thinking when it comes to technology. And it's been, every time I've gone to speak about blockchain, they've embraced it wholeheartedly. In fact, my pilot project that I'm working on, creating the VIN number for homes, I'm presenting it next week in San Diego to a group of 800 MLSs, which pretty much control every property that's listed in the US. So hopefully we can convince them that once the format for the identifier has been registered, to be able to explore blockchain type registry for those properties. Because then you can open it up to other sectors besides just people who are involved in the real estate transaction. If your home, you could have assessments from the local government. You could have insurance claims. You could have improvements. All of a sudden, you would have so much more information about these massive transactions you're making. Like when I bought my condo, I probably spent 30 minutes or 45 minutes in that home before making the biggest purchase of my life. And I can do more scrutiny on my used Camry that I bought. I knew more about that than I did my home. So we are excited for the future, and I really think that it's very important, especially for the real estate industry, to get this technology right. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to help do that.
Excellent. John, is there anything else in the report that you produced with the blockchain, with the Cook County Recorder, that you felt that you should share to a crowd of people that, it looks great, it's this, it's that, but this worked out better than I thought, or this was an obstacle that people should look at when implementing a blockchain or technology or distributed ledger?
I think, blockchains really are people, and that's why we're here today. People get lost in technology. I think, that's why government has a role. When I started in this conversation, I inserted myself because the private sector was saying, this technology can replace government, but, these same people don't realize that this open land record is why we're all able. That's why this city exists, probably, and there's been books written about this. So, it's really, a lot of the challenges are, who you're working with. It's so early that, you want to vet your partners, get to know their philosophy about blockchain. Are they chain agnostic, as a friend of mine likes to say, or, are they dogmatic or ideological in different ways about technology? And that's not helpful. So, it's about true collaboration and people working together to make things better. This is the ultimate good government, really, and it's partnership with the private sector to move things forward, which is pretty rare and exciting.
Excellent, thank you. Dave, you have anything else you'd like to add before we put out maybe a question or two?
Sure, no, just to let everyone know, I'll be here for the rest of the day, and if anyone wants to talk about the projects we're working on, or if anyone wants me to walk through our GitHub repos with them, I'm happy to do so. And again, I'm local to Chicago, involved with all the Chicago blockchain meetups. Everyone's welcome to come by our lab as well.
Excellent. We have time for maybe one or two questions. Yes. Okay, the question, by the way, is just about commercial real estate. We've spoke about the residential, but questions about commercial real estate and leasing, so.
Yeah, so the National Association of Realtors, it often, 90% of our members are residential realtors, but when it comes to blockchain tech, I feel that it's actually more applicable to the commercial side first, and specifically with leases, like you mentioned. I think the first real estate marketplaces that are decentralized will be regarding commercial leases before ever residential buildings are sold.
Yeah, I agree. You have a lot of inputs, data around a commercial real estate transaction that if you put them all as oracles into a single record for that building, you could increase the value of it as far as rents paid, electricity bills, things like that. If they become immutable, trusted data that lives and rides with the property, I think it only increases the value of that and makes people who do that, makes their properties more valuable.
Right. I can imagine an environment not too far away where those leases are automatically traded.
One last question, yes?
Is there applications in progress to help accurately price property taxes? And if there is, can that data or that chain be used to show the public how those revenues are being used for their schools?
Okay.
I could really step into it on this question. But, I think anyone who reads the news knows that there's possibly problems with the software that evaluates property in Cook County. So I would just say that, yeah, anything that makes everything more transparent and that where people can see what's going on and understand is a better thing. So that would just be, one of the problems with real estate is that you have to go to 6 different government offices to get an accurate picture of what's going on with your property. If this works, all this data is going to be hopefully consolidated, centralized, which is not a great word in blockchain, but it's really necessary for blockchain real estate. Is we can't do this without centralizing the data and the information and being able to agree on it. So, by doing that, then the sky's the limit.
That's it?
Thank you.
Thank you.